Trust Park, about 2 hours away from first pitch, game one of the NLDS. Braves getting ready to take on the Cardinals tonight. Dallas Keuchel on the bump for the Braves. No surprise really there. I'm here with Grant McCauley. We're going to get you ready for game one. We're going to take your questions in a couple of minutes here, but before we do that, we want to kind of just set the scene here, Grant. Game one, Braves back in the postseason. I don't think it's really a surprise to anyone that this team is back here. But what are you expecting for the Braves? I mean, they ended the regular season a little banged up. You know, Freddie Freeman dealing with that elbow, Ronald Acuna with the hip, groin, whatever. I mean, we heard all kinds of different things. Well, both, yeah. You know, they don't have Charlie Culberson. They don't have Johan Camargo, the two utility guys. What kind of is the state of this team right now as we get ready for game one?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the Braves have gone out and continued to add pieces as they've gone along. It wasn't just, hey, if a couple of guys get hurt, we're going to be in bad shape, because Alex Anthopoulos went out and found the pieces he needed to help out when Charlie Culberson and Johan Camargo went out, seemingly in 48 hours. All of a sudden, you had a Danny Echeverria who'd come along because Dansby Swanson was hurt, and Camargo wasn't playing all that well. So you had somebody in-house who could jump on the roster and help out. As far as the rest of it, I think it's been fascinating to see the pitching staff come together over the final month. Mike Foltynewicz pitched his way into the postseason rotation. Julio Teheran, I guess you could say, pitched his way off of the postseason roster, at least to this point. So overall, I feel like this is 25 guys that has come a long way from where they were a year ago this time. A lot more talent, a lot more depth, and just overall some postseason experience. I asked Brian Snitker about that. He said, look, you can't simulate this. Now the guys have seen it last October, played hard through the year. Now they're here again, and hopefully this second taste of October for guys like Acuna, Albies, and the likes is going to be pretty fruitful, and maybe they can make this thing go a long way.
All right, I'm here with Grant McCauley, our Braves insider. Again, I'm right here on Facebook. Get a little inception for you guys. So if you have your questions, I'll see them. It could be about anything. It could be about life, the Braves, whatever you want. Grant wants to talk about his life a little bit, but yeah. So all right, we got Dallas Keuchel on the mound tonight. Kind of had a little rough end to the season a little bit. What are you expecting from Keuchel? He's a guy who's been in the playoffs before. He's pitched in these big games. Didn't seem like he's feeling any kind of pressure. It seemed very relaxed yesterday in his presser. What are you expecting to see from Dallas tonight?
I mean, the most interesting thing about Dallas Keuchel was the fact that he had to wait a long time to pick a team, and he chose the Braves. And in doing so, he looked at it and he said yesterday that I chose a team I could go to the postseason with. There were other offers on the table, some clubs I didn't feel like could get to October, and I passed those over, and Atlanta's where he ended up. And I think the Braves are very happy about that, because he really stabilized a rotation that had a lot of youth and some inexperience and some injuries on top of that. So he's a guy that this is what you pay him the money for, to go out there and front your rotation. He's 4-2 in postseason play in 10 appearances, 9 starts, ERA just over 3. He's pitched in wild card games. He's pitched in the World Series. I mean, this is the guy you want to kind of set the tone, if you will. And with his age, his experience, and again, this is what they're paying him for, I think that this is exactly the kind of game and exactly the kind of environment he was looking forward to.
You like the decision to go with Keuchel game one?
I do. It's the guy that I would go with, because Mike Foltynewicz a year ago was an all-star in the National League, and he had to pitch his way back from the minor leagues. I think when that happened, it changed the front of the Braves rotation big time, because the guy you were counting on to anchor it was unavailable for all of spring training in the first month of the season, so you had to kind of put it together on the fly. Soroka came along. I can see the case for giving him the ball in game one, and I think that the Braves in coming years may be doing that, but with the veteran, with the postseason experience, I think Keuchel was the right guy.
Absolutely. And then, I don't want to get too far in the pitching rabbit hole here, but since we're here, might as well go a little bit deeper. And we got Folty on the bump tomorrow. Just how far has Folty come? I mean, just a couple months ago, he was a guy that was throwing the ball in Gwinnett, and now he gets the ball for game 2 of this playoff series. Then we got Soroka game 3. But Folty to be back where he is right now, last year everyone thought that he was the ace of this team. What does that say about Folty, where he's at mentally? Because I think a lot of the questions about Folty it's all in his head.
Yeah, and that's part of the game that you have to figure out how to make it work for you. I don't think anybody wants Mike Foltynewicz to go out and pitch like a robot. Although we watch Mike Soroka pretty much do that and be a little less emotional on the mound, never shaken, it didn't seem like. But for
we don't want to see a bunch of emotion either.
I mean, for some guys that works, and for other guys, I think that you can take that emotion and channel it and make it work. And everybody's a body language expert, and it's pretty easy to tell that somebody's frustrated when they're giving up hits right and left, a couple of home runs, things are just not going right. But for Folty, he had to take a step back, Brian Snitker said, in order to take a step forward. That step back was the minor leagues. not even 12 full months after being a National League All-Star. So I think he handled that. He learned what he needed to, and most importantly, he got his slider back, he got his confidence back, his command is back. He's also mixed in a really good curveball. So I think he's got the arsenal right now, and mentally he's equipped to go out and really take that next step. And it's quite a redemption story inside of a major league season, which is a lot of fun to follow.
Absolutely. All right, I want to go back to game one. We got a little deep there. Folsey's on the mound tomorrow. Game one here. It's been a year since we had postseason baseball here in Atlanta. What's the keys for the Braves? They're going to take game one.
Top of the order is really going to set the tone for the Braves, because they have, I think, talent-wise, 1 through 4, with Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman, and Josh Donaldson, one of the most powerful quartets, if you want to call it that, to start a lineup. And if those guys are rolling, it's going to be big trouble for the Cardinals. On the other hand, the Braves can score, and they do pretty well late in games as well, so they're able to work over tough starting pitchers, and maybe they don't do all their damage early, but they get them worked out of the game. If they continue those kinds of things, I think those are keys to success for the offense. But the pitching staff will have to be the masters of run prevention, because you've got to stop big innings, and there's going to be some, I think, short leashes in the postseason. We see that as well. You don't get a chance to give up 3 runs and come back and pitch your 5 innings. You may be gone if you run into too much trouble. So it'll be interesting to see how the Braves manage that and how long the leash is for even a Dallas Keuchel or a Mike Fultonevich or a Mike Soroka, your 3 best starters. But it's win or go home ultimately in these series, and the Braves are going to be all hands on deck from pretty much the first pitch on.
All right, we got Michael checking in saying, let's go Braves. D. Fox, go Cardinals. All right, so we got some people from St. Louis or some Cardinals fans in here.
There'll be some red here.
We got Winston, go Braves. Tommy and Randy Walter, go Cardinals. So we got a little mix here of Braves fans and Cardinals fans, and then we got someone sending a never forget link. I don't want to click that because I don't know what it is. Oh, infield fly. Of course. Of course, we're talking about the infield fly here.
Typically.
So, all right. So, thank you, James, for bringing that up, because we can talk a little about the infield fly, because the umpire that made that call is working this game here, working this series. Snit was kind of short about it, but said doesn't mean anything. It's a long time ago. Dansby Swanson, who was a fan at that point, a little kid watching that game, said that has nothing to do with this series. So the Braves kind of downplaying that angle. But do you think that matters? And do you think that is just a coincidence, or what kind of? I want to have some conspiracy theories here. What do you think's going on with that?
I mean, if it's not a coincidence, it's a major league troll job by Major League Baseball to put him here. I don't know how anybody could look at this game and look at that game and say, hey, we weren't thinking about that. But be that as it may, it has been, 7 years now. So hopefully none of that will rear its ugly head here. Obviously, the play would have to unfold the exact same way for us to have a repeat of that. And I honestly don't think that that's high on the list of things that Brian Snitker or anybody else is worried about. Uncomfortable for the fans in terms of seeing his name on the sheet, probably. But for the players, I think they got it pretty much tuned out. They just want to come out here, play games, win this game, and not have anybody talking about the umpires by the time the series is over.
All the players except McCann. McCann was on that team. I mean, I think he was the guy that was next up, I think, if the bases would have been loaded. Right?
So, he was right in the middle of that. And it was Chipper Jones' final game as well. And it was, I think, a regrettable night all around, because the Braves fell behind early. Before the infield fly happened, that game already wasn't going the way that you wanted it to. So it's good to see that this team has the ability to kind of separate itself, but also
we're losing people. We're losing people talking about the infield fly.
Not surprising. Not surprising. All right, I wouldn't want to talk about it if I were there.
Let's bring it back. All right, stay with me, people. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this Braves roster. A guy that really opened up to us yesterday was Josh Donaldson. He's third baseman. It's been a long time since the Braves have had a steady third baseman. I think you pulled up the stat, you tweeted it out. There have been almost 30 guys, over 30 guys that have played third base since Chipper Jones played his last game in 2012. That's a ridiculous number of guys. And then you have Donaldson coming in. He's been banged up throughout his career. He comes here, puts together pretty much a full year of work at third base, has been great. And been really stable at that position. Do you think that he's almost played himself into maybe getting re-signed? I mean, I think he's almost, he's going to get a big contract. He's going to ask for a lot of money. I think with his age, he's going to ask for years more than, I think he's more concerned about the years than the money maybe. But I think if you're Alex Anthopoulos, you want Josh Donaldson around. I think if you're in that Braves clubhouse, you want Josh Donaldson around for a long time.
Yeah, I think he changed the dynamic of this clubhouse altogether when he walked in, because of the way he plays the game, the swagger in which he approaches everything that he does. I think that those are huge game changers for the Braves, in addition to the fact he's had that MVP caliber production that you signed him to give. And 37 home runs this season, close to what he was doing back in Toronto when he won that MVP award. And there was about a 4-year stretch in the American League where the only better hitter was Mike Trout. Trout. If you can add a guy like that, it's going to make a difference on your club. And I do think that he can get a multi-year deal, whether it be 2 years plus an option, 3 years plus an option, whatever it is. He's going to be 34 this winter, but I think the Braves would be very happy to have him around for multiple years.
All right, I'm a little crazy, so I'm going to go off topic for one question. One question for you, Grant, because you brought up Mike Trout. Is it just because I don't watch the Angels enough, or because I don't know? Am I just dumb? Mike Trout. I mean, yeah, he's always at home watching when it really matters. I mean, I'm good on Mike Trout. I'm good on him.
Yeah, well, he's
crazy?
He's the best player of this generation, so I would say probably so.
I've heard that about a bunch of guys.
You haven't heard that about that many guys, because Mike Trout has the numbers to put that up. I mean, I would challenge you to find 2 or 3 other guys playing right now that are better, because there's not one. He is that good. He's been that good. I mean, he essentially is, baseball hopes, marketable enough to turn him into some version of a LeBron James or some, transcendent athlete. But Mike Trout has a different personality, too, and I think that's important. And in baseball, it ain't one guy. Basketball, one guy can make a difference. Baseball, you need a team, and you got to play 162, and that tells the tale.
I think you got to play 162, and then we also got to see you play when it matters in the postseason too a little bit. But hey, a guy actually, look, since we're down this I'm all about rabbit holes. We're down the Mike Trout rabbit hole now. Our friend Mark Zinno, SportsX, asked me earlier on in the year, would you trade Ronald Acuna for Mike Trout 1-for-1? I said no, and he thought I was crazy. What do you think about that?
I mean, it depends on what the deal is, because at this point you're trading for Trout and his $400 million contract, and you're also trading for Trout, who's 6 or 7 years older than Acuna. So at some point you have to decide, is the next 3 to 5 years of Mike Trout in his prime worth more than the next 10 years of Ronald Acuna Jr.? So I can see the case for both. If it happened, I wouldn't be upset on either way, but I don't think that's a trade that either the Angels or the Braves are going to have to worry about.
All right, we'll get back to the Braves. Now we got Michelle here, hoping the Braves use this 97 degrees to their advantage. All right, McQuaid, I want you to, hold on. McQuaid, get him real tight on my watch for a second. What is that? Look, Apple, hold on. Apple, if you're watching this, my watch says 71 degrees. It is not 71 degrees.
71 degrees Celsius.
When I first saw it, I thought maybe it was because I was sitting in a car, sitting in AC, and I was like, I gave Apple a lot of credit. I was like, maybe it's the temperature that it is in the car, because then I was like, all right, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I'm just thinking too much about it. But we're standing out here right now. It's not 71 degrees. It's far from 71 degrees. It won't even be 71 degrees tonight. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to power down once we get done with here. But, this heat, how much do you think that is going to be a factor tonight, Grant? Because, the Braves, they're used to this heat. They've been playing it all summer. I mean, this is just a typical summer day for them. But the Cardinals, maybe they're not used to this.
I don't know. It's pretty hot out there in St. Louis as well, and I think the humidity certainly for both teams will be something they're going to have to deal with. But long story short, I think this is going to be the hottest day on record in the month of October in Atlanta history if we're scoring those kind of things at home. But I don't think either team's going to worry about it too much. You just go out there, work up a good sweat, and hopefully, get done what you need to get done. If you're one of the starting pitchers, those are the 2 guys I'd be watching the closest.
All right, Grant, I'm not going to let you use our Facebook Live to peddle your global warming theories, all right? It's fake news here. All right, let's get back to this, though, because now we got Michelle here saying Braves in 4.
That's my prediction.
That seems like 4 seems like the popular number among Braves fans. I think that if the Braves can take 2 here, are we assuming the Braves can take 2 here and then go back and St. Louis gets 1 there? I mean, because I don't see Soroka losing on the road.
Well, that's the thing is
Soroka's game 3.
They also have their best pitcher throwing in game 2, in Jack Flaherty, who's been one of the best pitchers in the National League. And if you put together 2 halves like
I think the best in the second half.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, when you look at all of baseball, that's the kind of pitcher you want on the mound in these big games. They've got one of those in their back pocket as well. So if you get out of here having split these 2 games, that's great. You can go out on the road, do no worse than a split there. You've got a game 5 here in your backyard if you need it. I've been saying Braves in 4. I do think that they can get that done. I think Flaherty's probably the one really noticeable speed bump, because Michaelis and Adam Wainwright, also Dakota Hudson, the 3 other starters that they've got that the Braves may see in this series, those are guys who have struggled a little bit, and especially on the road. So we'll see how that all plays.
The Cardinals announced that Wainwright's getting game 3. Game 4, though, Snit hasn't gone that far. How do you think the Braves approach a possible game 4? Do you see them approaching that game by committee? Do you see Max Fried? How do you see that game being approached by Snip?
I think right now the plan would be Max Fried, but if that were to change based on bringing somebody back on short rest or trying to piece it together a different way, I mean, those are the 4 starters that you've got. I mean, you're going to have Dallas Keuchel in game 1, Mike Foltynewicz in game 2, Mike Soroka in game 3, and Fried is the only other guy stretched out to start. So I think right now Fried would get the ball there, but again, it just kind of depends on where the Braves find themselves. Are you down 2-1? Are you up 2-1? Or is there no game 4 at all? So we'll see how that plays, but I think right now the plan is Max Fried in game 4.
All right, we got Bobby saying he's watching from Texas. Appreciate you. And then we got David saying you'd have to have something wrong with your head to be out in this heat for a ball game. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say you have something wrong with you. Me personally, I don't know if I could sit out here in this heat and watch a baseball game. Luckily, I get to sit in the press box. We got air conditioning, we got drinks, popcorn. So I'm going to be cozy. But I don't know. These people are going to have to definitely be brave in the elements here. Look, a little play on words there. But all right, Grant. Just kind of final thoughts here on this series, because the Cardinals are a team that I think when we're talking to our partners at our sister station in St. Louis, they're almost just happy to be here. I mean, to be back in the postseason. I think it's the first time since 2015. I mean, this is a team that it's won World Series. They've been there, done that. They're just happy to kind of be back. They're not really sure that they're supposed to be here right now. I think the Braves have expectations. I think the pressure is on the Braves to perform in this series. And I think that for the first time, I think that 18-year streak of not winning a playoff series, I think that comes to an end, this week.
Yep, I think this is the series for that. I think the Cardinals do have a high degree of expectation as well, but they just got to the postseason a little bit differently because they had to play down all the way to the final week to eliminate a couple of clubs that were chasing them, were a little bit peskier, whereas the Braves, they were able to get really hot and hold a pretty good lead in the National League East, and nobody really put the heat on them that much, even though the Nationals were playing great baseball. But I think that this is a time for the Braves to really step forward. You've got a whole new group, a whole new dynamic, different style of players than we've seen in a long time. Ronald Acuna, as you touched on it earlier, he could be a generational talent. I mean, he's a guy that at the All-Star game, Mike Trout said, I enjoy watching Ronald Acuna.
Hold on, don't try to backtrack now and say this generational.
This is what I'm saying, though, is like we've got these kind of players coming along in the very early years of their career, so you hope that this is the opening of what could be a very long and outstanding run of Braves baseball going forward, and what better way to get it kick-started than to go ahead and win this series, make some noise this October, and then make this thing run for years and years.
It's interesting. I haven't had a chance to talk to Freddie Freeman about this yet, but in spring training when we were down in Florida, he said that he wants to be a Brave for life. Freddie's a guy that's been through the dark years here, and kind of he's gone through the other side now, back-to-back years in the postseason. I'd be interested to hear from him, kind of from his perspective. Is this the expectation now to be in the postseason from here on out for him for the rest of his career? The Braves, because they've set themselves up. They have Acuna, they got him signed. They got Ozzie Albies signed. They got, they have their young core signed for the foreseeable future. I would think that Freddie's expectation is to be in the postseason for the rest of his career.
I would think so, but at least for the interim, when you start looking at the next 2, 3, 4 years of the prime of his career, that's something that I think he would like to see. I mean, he had to go a long time without having the Braves winning baseball games the way they were for so long and for the early portion of his career. So it's good to see that the Braves have built around him, and hopefully this is something Freddie will get to enjoy quite a few times right here at SunTrust Park.
All right, hold on. I'm going to hand you the mic for a second. I'm going to grab my other phone. Oh, hold on. There you go. Appreciate you. Look, I got two phones, but our fine friends right here getting their seats early here. All right, let's check in and see what we got here. We got Nancy. Best wishes today. We know you can do it, even in this 99-degree heat. Hey, Nancy, appreciate you. Appreciate the words of encouragement. I'm trying to get it done out here. It is hot, but I appreciate you cheering me. Oh, she ended with saying go Braves. So she wasn't talking to me. She was talking about the Braves. All right, final thoughts for tonight. What are you expecting to see tonight? Are you expecting the Braves to get the win tonight? How's Dallas Keuchel win, and how does Dallas Keuchel perform? And who's the X factor tonight? Through all these questions at you, give me them.
I mean, your X factor is going to be the top of the Braves order. I'm going to go with Ronald Acuna Jr. because as he goes and as he sets that tone, it seems to energize the entire lineup. So I'm looking for big things from him. I talked to Brian Snitker earlier today and just asked him what Acuna and Albies mean to this lineup, this team, both on the field and in that clubhouse. They bring the energy, he said. And if they bring energy at the top of this order, the Braves lineup can get going. They can put up crooked numbers with the best of them. Taking game one would be a great way to start this series.
Any concerns about his groin?
No, I'm not concerned about that at all.
Okay, there we go. Very nice. Very nice. how's Dallas do tonight? Does he bounce back? Because I mean, he hasn't had a good outing in his last couple times.
I mean, but he pitched so well in that second half that I feel like if you get 5-6 innings out of him, you've gotten what you need to. If he's able to avoid big innings and work out of trouble, I think 6 innings would be a pretty realistic expectation. But as we know in the postseason, a lot of times you build it so that you can go to the guys that you brought over to do it. So we may be seeing Chris Martin, Shane Green, and Mark Melancon playing big roles in this game if you can just get through that first 6 innings.
All right, score prediction.
I'm going to say 4-1 Braves.
4-1 Braves. That's a low-scoring game. So you think they took the juice out of the balls for the postseason?
I do not.
Conspiracy theory Grant. He's been talking about climate change. He was talking about juiced balls, all this crazy stuff.
All of it.
Grant McCauley, though, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Braves getting ready to take on Cardinals. Game 1 of the NLDS. We'll have you covered with post-game coverage on 11 Alive and 11alive.com. So be sure to check us out on air and online. And, of course, you can follow us on social media. I'm Alex Glaze. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex_Glaze. Grant, plug your Twitter. What's your Twitter?
I'm at Grant McCauley, GrantMcauley. All
right, and then we also got some fun stuff on 11 Alive Sports. Yesterday we posted Josh Donaldson and talking about relationships and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, check us out there. We'll have all kinds of fun coming later on tonight. Thanks.